Hello, I'm Rick Hertless, founder of His Gospel Power. Thank you for joining with our program. Please go to hisgospelpower.org, click on the donate button or the contact us button, and thank you so much to all of those who support our ministry through your prayers and through your financial gifts. Okay, we are now in the book of 2 Thessalonians, chapter 2, and we will be in verse 15 today. I do want to remind you of what we were talking about, of course, last week, and that was that Satan is going to come with his lying wonders and signs, and then there will be many who will believe that, and they will be sent a strong delusion. And I believe that's kind of what's happening in a big part of this country. I've never seen... It is an amazing thing to me. Alert here, I'm about to bring politics into the gospel. It's an amazing thing to me because capitalism has brought us the greatest economy in the world. In fact, it's amazing to me how so many think that, especially millennials or whatever, so many think that socialism is the answer. But all of those socialist countries around the world that are starving or on the edge of bankruptcy have always come to us for money. It's just an amazing thing to me how you can look at that and still want to be a socialist, because what is going to happen is when this country becomes a socialist nation, the entire world, I'm not talking about America, the entire world will go to a caste society, because then we will no longer be able to fund everybody in the world like we've always done. We will no longer be able to help with the plagues and with all of the financing that goes on. We will no longer be able to send any kind of military help or anything like that because we won't have the money to do so. When America falls to socialism, that we will see the entire world is going to go into pretty close to if not a caste society. And if you don't know what that means basically you have the elite, you have the ruler class, and the rest of us who are poor. That's the bottom line. There will be no middle class. At the very least, there will be a lower middle class. But that's about it. That it will go to that kind of a society. And it's just amazing to me. And the delusion that I'm seeing is how all of these people think that the globalist agenda is the way it should be. The globalist agenda, open up all the borders. Now, I'm going to tell you, the reason I believe God is a God of nations is because it goes way back to the book of Moses even. Now, forget about all the other, there was nations, of course. There was Egypt, and, there was Israel, and there was all these other nations back then. But really, it takes us back to the fact that Moses, when he was leading all of Israel out of Egypt, he was trying to handle all the problems on his own. And he couldn't do it. And, of course, his father-in-law, Jethro, came to him and he says, hey, if you keep doing this, you're going to kill yourself and you're going to ruin the rest of them because you can't do it all. And so he broke things up broke it up into areas. Okay, I'm not going to call them nations because they weren't. It was still the nation of Israel. But he broke them up into areas that could be handled. Just like, basically tribes, okay? He broke them up, and he allowed each tribe to handle their problem, and then it trickled down from there. Well, that's the same thing it is with our nations. Now, if you open up all the borders, and then let's just say you open up the United States border, and everybody in the world wants to come to the United States, and they do anyway, okay? So everybody in the world wants to come to the United States, and now they can come unfettered. Which really we've already gotten a taste of that with Barack Obama, and it sees the burden on our society has been great because of that. And so if you open it unfettered, though, and then all of the people of the world decide to come to the United States, what's the United States going to look like? God knows that it's not sustainable. He knows that we will not be able to sustain any kind of a life like that, and neither will any other country. I don't care if in fact, a great example of that is Europe, because that's exactly what they did. They said, you know what? We're going to open the borders and we're going to let all of these refugees or whatever you want to call them from the Middle East come. Well, now it's not sustainable. Europe is about to crash because of that. And then not only that, there is lawlessness abounds because there is not enough officials to be able to handle all of the law breaking, the rapes, the thefts, everything that is going on in Europe. And so Europe is not the same area that it has always been. It's becoming a very bad area, and they're trying now to push back and saying, okay, enough is enough. But you see, you're not understanding that because people are falling into the Antichrist agenda, that this is happening. That is exactly what you're going to see when Antichrist takes over. There's going to be a great chaos, which will allow Antichrist to come in, because he's going to come in and say, I've got the solution and we're going to all fix it. And then, of course, his solution is going to be absolute, total control. Now, if you like what you've seen these last 2 or 3 months of staying home, doing absolutely nothing except maybe going to the grocery store, your freedoms have all been taken away. If you like that, then you're going to love the globalist agenda. And so that's what we're about to head into. But 2 Thessalonians 2:15 says, if we will give thanks to God, and if we will turn back to Him, the God of nations, he says, therefore, brethren, stand fast and hold the traditions which you were taught, whether by word or our epistle. And the traditions that we would have been taught as Christians are going to be absolutely anti-globalism. Hollywood is a globalist entity. And the traditions Hollywood wants you to take on is debauchery and adultery and fornication and all of those things that you can list. And those are the traditions they want you to bring, but instead of the traditions in which we were taught when I was young, which was to love each other, take care of each other, and monogamy, and all of those things that the Bible talks about. Well, those things are out the window with globalism. And so that is what we're experiencing right now. That's what you're seeing happening. If you're a millennial and you're listening to this, that is what you're seeing happening. You may not have recognized it because it has happened, in my estimation, very rapidly, but in your estimation, probably just slowly, But now, in the last year, 2, 5, whatever, really since Barack Obama came into office, it's been like a freight train, and it's even moving faster and faster and faster every day. And so that's what we're experiencing right now, is the globalist agenda. Ron Stortle.
Well, I think the biggest thing that I've seen, speaking on those traditions, the biggest tradition is the 2 great commandments that we were given, to love the Lord our God and to love your neighbor. One of the biggest things I've seen through this social distancing that the government is pushing is not just mere social distancing, but the fact they never want to bring certain things back. Fauci said we should never shake hands again. They're even talking about, and really this is one of the traditions from the Talmud, that husbands and wives aren't allowed to hold hands in public. I mean, I could see them pushing something like that. I mean, if you're out in public, not even touching other people. I mean, they're doing this whole elbow or this wave shake that they're doing now. I've even seen reports that when women give birth now, they're separating the child from the parent to prevent the possible spread of coronavirus. I mean, they're just these crazy things that they're doing now that they're really trying to prevent the interaction that the Bible tells us we should be having. Loving our neighbor. I mean, just the core concept of social distancing is anti-biblical.
Absolutely.
Church.
Antichrist.
Yeah, it's antichrist because they don't want you to interact with your neighbor. Last week, I was saying that Michigan, the governor signed an executive order saying that you can't go to your neighbor's house.
Right.
Where would they come up with something like that except through an antichrist spirit of not wanting you to interact and and witness to your neighbor. I mean, they went so far as said you can't even go to your family's house. I mean, they basically...
No, I know.
They elaborated to that point, saying, no, you're not even allowed to go to your family's house.
Yes, and of course the people rose up and they said, did you see that?
I've seen different areas. I didn't see specifically.
The people rose up and went to the Capitol. Some of them, many of them carrying guns.
Well,
and said, you've overstepped your bounds.
Yeah.
Now, but unfortunately, she is still sticking with her agenda, and she's blaming them for endangering everybody. Now you've come out, and now you've endangered everybody because you can infect them. Come on, boys and girls. Infect them with what? I mean...
Common sense.
You know what? There is going to come... If this separation continues... The worst thing, they've done studies on this, and there are many, you can look these up, and this has been for when I was a boy, when I was 11, 12 years old, I read a couple of studies like this. They took chimpanzees, and one of them they kept separate. They fed them every day. They never touched them. They never did anything. They kept them separate every day. Everything should have been great. It died. The same chimpanzee brother, they touched him every day. They petted him every day. They talked to him. They fed him. They held him, everything. He lived to be a ripe old chimpanzee. The other one died as a baby. We are relational beings. God wants a relationship with us, and he set us up to have relationships with each other. The Greek calls it koinonia, and koinonia is where you come together and Paul says, you greet each other with a spiritual kiss. It's like, and you are exactly right, and I've seen this. They're trying to take that away, that relational aspect.
Yes, that's exactly what the purpose is, because they want us. I got to go back to the movie and book 1984. That is exactly the purpose of it. People lived solitary. Even when they were working, they didn't interact with people. They interacted with a computer, and the only, you could even say, type of interaction was Big Brother basically telling them when they were doing things wrong, criticizing them.
Well, what is a huge thing that does if you isolate everybody?
Well, I know it's depressing.
Yeah, I know that.
One.
But, from the government standpoint, what is huge about that?
Oh, it's all about control.
They will not rise up. You can't come together and make any kind of plan or anything. You can't rise up. One of the things they do with prisoners is you stand in line, you don't talk until we tell you can. You don't do anything. You don't interact at all. Because if you can do that, then you can formulate a plan and you can rise up. And so they keep that separate.
And one of the things they're doing, and I was talking to you about this before the program, how the government is making it so easy to make this enticing to the public. I was telling you, I started getting my unemployment payments, and I am literally making more money on unemployment than I did while I was working. Money-wise, but then when I factor in all the expenses that I save, vehicle maintenance, gas, food that I would spend while I'm out, yeah, they're making it very enticing to just stay home and do nothing.
And, of course, they've been doing that for years. The welfare system was designed to keep people from working.
Right, and
then what does that also do? That's also a control issue, because if they send you first they just send you a letter. Well, you're not doing all the things that you should be doing, and if you're not careful, then you're in danger of losing your benefits. And the next thing may look like a phone call, or this. Of course, these days it would be an email or whatever. But then the next thing may be a phone call that, hey, you're in danger of losing your benefits. And the next thing you know, you're losing them if you go against what they tell you that you can do.
Well, and that was on the welfare side before. The more
right,
the more
that
kids
was welfare, exactly.
The more kids you spit out, the less you work, the more you make. Now they're making it enticing for those to not go back to work that had a work ethic before. Personally, how I see it as, I work for this. I'm anti-welfare, but I'm pro
Well, you paid into an insurance policy. That's what unemployment is.
Right. So that's why I'm okay.
But unfortunately, that's not sustainable, and they've made the insurance policy to where they're trying to make it maybe more permanent, and the more they can keep on the books.
Right.
From the Democratic standpoint, the Republicans have always been capitalist, quote unquote, okay, to a large degree. Democrats, they want the other side. They're more the welfare state. They're more the big government. Let's all take care of people. The problem is when you start letting someone take care of you, you become under their control.
Yeah, that's why I'm just kind of looking at this as a paid vacation. That's how I'm looking at it. I'm looking forward to getting back to work, but I don't mind taking a little paid vacation that I paid into. So I'm okay with that.
And another issue is that if you decide to succumb, and I know you won't, but I'm talking about
a lot will.
People, if the general people decide to succumb and say, you know what, I'm making more money this way, I'm going to just keep this as long as I can keep it.
And they may get to that point.
And they may. And, well, they're even talking about around the world giving people, money every single month. And once that happens, though, guess what? You have no financial mobility at all. At that point, let's just say that they start off giving everybody a good living, which is not sustainable, okay? But let's just say they do. So they give every man, woman, and child in your household, I don't know, just pick a number. Let's say that they do something like they did the stimulus. They give the adults $2,000 a month, which is the number I've heard. That's why I'm throwing that out.
I've heard that too, yeah.
And then because of however many children you have, they give you, say, $500 a month. Well, that's $4,000, and let's say you got 2 children. That's $5,000 a month to not work. You don't need as many cars. You don't need as much gasoline. All of those things, just exactly like you said, your expenses can go down at that point. And so now they're giving you that much money. And they're giving everybody, and it's wonderful. Everybody's like, man, alive, I never made so much money. Okay? And then all of a sudden, now there are no jobs. And then one day you wake up on January the 1st, and they said, well, this is not really sustainable. We've decided to cut y'all down to $3,000 a month instead of $5,000. Pretty soon, that's exactly how it looks. That's exactly what happened in Russia. That's what's happened in communist countries. That's what happened in China. That's what has happened in communist countries, is that eventually they have control. Then they can give you whatever you want, and there is no upward mobility because now you have no way to bring in extra money.
And just think about it. What if they add into that scenario the fact that maybe you have to take a vaccine, or maybe you have to take
that will absolutely.
A tracking chip?
No, that will. The mark, exactly, is a big, huge part of that. That is Satan agenda. That's why you've got to open your eyes and be aware of what Satan is doing here. Do not succumb to the delusion. That's what has to happen. We'll talk more about this, of course, tomorrow. Thank you for joining with our program. Please go to hisgospelpower.org, click on the donate button or the contact us button, and thank you so much to all who do support our ministry. Until next time, I pray you receive His gospel power today.
He died for you. He died for me. From our sin, He set us free. He loved us so, His life He gave. So if we ask, we can be saved. He's calling you, He's calling you. Jesus Christ is calling you. If He's touched your heart and soul, and we will pray that all your sin be washed away. Don't be afraid, don't be ashamed. Just come and praise His holy name. He's calling you, He's calling you. Jesus Christ is calling you. If He's touched your heart and soul, come let Jesus make you whole. If you feel Him touching you, confess your sin